Let's go.
Good morning. My name is Ada Deitman. I am the co-founder of a retail brand called Floor Plan. We create experiential marketing activations within small spaces. Right now, we have a small space called in iVillage, which is in a shipping container yard. So our job there is to flip those 180 square feet spaces and make them Instagrammable friendly so people can come in and shop.
Hi, my name is Greg Katz. I'm Chief Strategy Officer for the Shopping Center Group here in Atlanta. We are a retail brokerage and analytics firm.
My name is Stephen Bucco. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Curb, and we are a data analytics company for marketing and for retail analytics.
Awesome, thank you. So to kind of kick things off, we kind of keep hearing retail apocalypse. It's been a term over, I don't know how many years now. What do you think is, or how do you think that retail can start combating all of the digital touch points and digital marketing that we have and brands that are now pop-ups and direct to consumers?
Well, my experience first, I used to go into malls that had a number of brands that were closing down, like a BB, a Charlotte Russe, they were closed down. And so Tupman, Simon, and I think GGP or GPP would always ask me to, hey, I have this space, I'll give it to you for $2,000 for the weekend, can you pop it out? And I would. And so we would take brands that were digitally native, you know, e-commerce brands, and then allow them to come and pop up into the store for 72 hours. 72 hours. And so this was like taking digital marketing and adding that to pop-ups, which is a marketing play as well. So I don't think that, yes, a lot of stores are starting to close down, but I do think that malls or properties like that should accept the pop-up shop model and allowing more up-and-coming brands to stay there for a week or two and see what that happens, right? Because, example, we were in Chicago on the Magnificent Mile in a great location. We paid $3,000 for the space. In sales that weekend, we made $80K. And we made more than Nordstrom's that weekend. And so it was saying that people want diverse experiential activities. Instead of shopping, they want to meet the maker. And that was our play for that.
I don't really, maybe I take a different view, and I'm going to age myself a little bit too, but I don't see a retail apocalypse. I don't see a major issue from a retail perspective right now. I think it's easy for the media to talk about it because it's fun when you can say there's been 6,200 closings and you know, look what's happening. But if you go back in time and you look when this, and again, aging myself, but when the Sears catalog was first out, that was going to kill retail. No one was going to go into the retail stores because everyone was going to use the catalog order and have it shipped to them. That was actually probably the first form of e-commerce. When then it became catalog showrooms like Service Merchandise and companies like that, and that was going to kill retail because that was an all-in-one place to go and pick out everything from an engagement ring to a toaster. And so that was the end of retail as we knew it. Then came the mail order scenario, and then that was going to kill retail. So, you know, then became e-commerce, and of course that was going to kill retail. So I think it's dramatically overstated. I think what's happening is there's retail evolution. Evolution is going to continue to happen. Those that don't evolve and don't do different and unique things like you're talking about will die. But there's going to be another retailer or another concept to take its place. So I think you got to put it in perspective and look at what's really happening versus what people like to say is happening.
Yeah, Greg, I think I can probably echo some of that. From a retail apocalypse, I don't think that's happening. I do think there are a shit ton of store closures. I mean, that's extremely obvious, but the retail store will not disappear. It will just change. and how people use the space will change. I'm from DC, I'm in New York all the time, and walk down, in any store in Greenwich Village, and they're changing. And how people interact with the space is changing. Experiential driven marketing, the budget for that department has grown quarter over quarter for 19 straight quarters. So just follow the money in this kind of situation, and really understand how companies understand that I need to offer an experience-driven approach in order to promote my product. And so a great example, I kind of touched on when I first kicked off here. What my company does is we have a artificial intelligence camera that retailers and marketers use at events and in retail locations to track the number of consumers that come in the store. We're different based on, we're essentially like what we'll say Motion Loft, but we're a version of Motion Loft that sets up in about 2 minutes, and you can break down in 2 minutes. It's kind of a mobile version of that. And our key client, or one of our forward-facing clients, is Amazon. And what Amazon does is they have something called a treasure truck. I'm not sure if anyone in the audience has seen or heard of this Amazon experience-driven treasure truck, but it's a big truck. They'll park in the middle of Times Square, and they'll promote products, and they'll sell products through the Amazon app. So what's that's doing? That's bringing kind of a retail brick-and-mortar style store that has the actual product on the truck, but then they're adding a kind of consumer engagement dynamic to it, and that's been very successful for them. I think they're in 30 cities in the U.S. and 14 in Europe. So to Greg's point, don't think there's a retail apocalypse by any stretch of the imagination. I just think how we're using the space is changing.
Awesome. So all of you kind of touched on it a little bit, but how do you see brick and mortar being reimagined? So obviously they have to do something to change, evolved, and Ada touched on it a little bit with pop-up shops, but how do you see it now, and how do you think it will continue to evolve?
I think that, so I read a report this morning, or last night, that you're 60% more likely to purchase a product if there's a coffee shop or some sort of other activity involved with the store. And so I think someone mentioned yesterday that kind of malls need to be redefining who their anchor tenant is, whether that's a hotel or a Whole Foods or, some other type of experience is something that clearly is coming to the forefront. So kind of pairing your brick and mortar store with other engagements and other experiences is super interesting. A great example is Sephora. I don't wear makeup, but my girlfriend does. And she mentioned that recently that she went into a Sephora store, and they are pretty much industry leaders when it comes to being a big box retailer. But when you walk in, it's a complete experience. Every station now has an iPad. They have an interactive VR kind of mirror situation that lets you try on 2,000 different products immediately, and then they ship within 1 hour. Okay, so define a better experience than that, and that's it. And so how do we get other companies like Sephora to integrate some sort of experience-driven approach? That's only going to continue to happen, but the ones that are slow to that adoption will kind of fall behind.
Yeah, I agree, and I think it's experiential, but it's also experiential more than just brick and mortar. It's connecting all of the dots across. Amazon, the treasure truck is a great example. You combine that with Amazon Go and Amazon Books, and then online, and you start to create an everywhere approach that's not only in your face, but in theory creates some experience around it. And I as you look forward, I think you'll see more adaptable, smaller spaces. I think you'll see more change in those spaces much more quickly. And I don't think you'll see, from a retail perspective, I don't think you'll see long-term leases anymore. I think anchors have changed. I think, we're seeing a great example is there's a large super regional mall here in Atlanta that is getting rid of its Sears and replacing it with multiple retailers, among them things like Dick's Sporting Goods and others that have never done malls before. And that Dick's isn't going to be your traditional store. It's going to be more experiential and really leverage the Under Armour and Nike and some of the other experiences that those individual brands are trying to do. So I think experience is a big buzzword right now, and I think that combined with the evolution of space and how it's used will be real important.
I can agree with that. I come from a small business perspective, so a lot of the brands that I'm working with don't have the Sephora's money or the Macy's money, but they do have a little cash to spend on how you experience their product. And so within our business, we have a set designer who goes in and talks to the brand about, okay, what do you see your brand envision in a set, and what does that look like, so people can experience that. And so what we're finding is that inside of containers, you can do that. You can create small environments of multiple businesses that can all come together and use that community commerce type of style while also being creative. You may not have the Sephora budget, but you may have a budget that can allow your brand to show out in a space that's 50 square feet.
You made a really interesting point. You mentioned kind of smaller businesses. I think that smaller and online focused brands will be a major contributor, I think, kind of to this space. And we're working with a company in Washington, D.C., and I've seen them in New York. They kind of aspire to be the we work for retail. And you're like, we work, and you're like, whew, buzzword here, trigger point, right? So what they aspire to do is they rent very, very high-end retail in New York or in Georgetown, D.C., where I live, and they actually kind of break it down into multiple bays, where that space can turn into 6 different locations for online brands to pop up, to your point, for 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. But the entrance point is significantly lower than someone like a Sephora. I mean, it's a couple $100 a day, right? But all of a sudden, you have prime real estate on Fifth Avenue.
Well, look at, to that point, look at the trends in things like neighborhood goods out of Texas and Beta, who is taken away for, it used to be just more electronic and technology items. Now it's turning into makeup and all kinds of other things where you're going in and the staff is trained on every single item in that store, and you're literally renting space to show your product and have that person be able to demonstrate it, et cetera. So it's a different way to pop up. It's a way to get your product out there, get people to touch and feel it and experience it without having to, go into a full brick-and-mortar situation, which can be very costly.
So, Stephen, you kind of touched on this a little bit. You said Sephora has this awesome experience. So we're all consumers ourselves.
I haven't seen that or experienced that experience myself, for the record.
Describe what your girlfriend has
Thank
witnessed. So inside Sephora, there is a, I guess, 11 by 18 type of frame they have that you can scan your face and you can try on the products. And it gives a woman the I can change like that via AI, right? And so now I know what I can buy instead of waiting for the product to come and trying it on, then I got to turn it back in. So I think Sephora is like getting your emotion right there. And the fact that an AI bot can scan you and figure you out also captures your data. And then they like that because then they can sell the products to you. So they're tricking us, honestly, but it works.
But think how that even expands out.
So does that Snapchat filter.
It is.
I mean, look at what Warby Parker's doing right now. So on the phone app, you can try on glasses, right? And so you literally can see your face and have the frames, placed right there, so that you don't have to be in store to have that experience of what does it look like. And so, I think what they found was it's great to be able to order 3 frames and try them on at home, et cetera. But if you can reduce that friction and make it so that you got the right frame initially, then everybody wins in that situation. So again, another way that that's been not only in store, but it's being taken out of store as well.
Kayla, one thing I found was interesting. A report kind of came out within the last couple months, and this is a little bit away from experience marketing because I feel like we've kind of really nailed that. It's more for kind of creating micro warehouses, and I'm not sure if anyone in the audience really understands kind of how that works, but brands are starting to identify their peak season, and then they're kind of renting out high-end locations. They turn that into an experience pop-up like we're talking about, but then in the back, that's the source for the last mile delivery. So it's actually exponentially cheaper to rent a nice retail space downtown Atlanta and then fill your, the whole back room with products that are your highest selling products that generate 80% of your revenue. And then it really cuts down on your last mile delivery cost. So that's kind of a trend that is starting to kind of overtake brick and mortar. So it's brick and mortar from an experience standpoint, but then a brick and mortar for how do I reduce my delivery costs.
Awesome. So once again, you guys all kind of touched on another question that I had, which is one of the themes of this conference has been people kind of being replaced by technology in the future. What role do you think people play as far as, on the other end of brokerage when they're trying to find a space, and even on the side of, customer-facing front lines customer service? What role do you think people will play in the future of retail?
Kind of start it. Someone also mentioned yesterday that there's kind of that squeeze in the market, right? Like whether you're, the technology savvy guy, I think it was Michael Beckerman, kind of talk at the very top, and then at the bottom you kind of have your engineers, data scientists, and everything in between is kind of, we'll say the leasing agents or financial analysts that, your service or your product can be automated in some way. And, being an artificial intelligence quote unquote expert, I think that there's a lot that AI and computer vision can offer this type of industry. But from a customer service standpoint, that kind of goes back to making sure that your customers really have the right experience. And throwing technology at them a lot of time isn't the right solution. I mean, a great example is you go into McDonald's and you can order via a screen now. Yes, that's reducing costs, but is the customer experience better? There's conflicting reports. So you can apply that to multiple different veins. I think that integrating technology will only enhance your customer service in frontline staff. So you need to kind of pair that line and integrating technology that will enhance what we currently do. I mean, previously I was at Deloitte, and that was our biggest kind of problem set, is that we would have companies come to us and say, we want to integrate this technology. It's like, well, it's supposed to complement what you're already doing. You're not just going to cut staff and grow revenues instantly. It needs to be an integrated approach. So that's probably the one takeaway I would say. Don't kind of cut sizing, but maybe make sure that you focus on adopting technologies that are the most useful in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, even you mentioned from a brokerage or leasing and or representation perspective, et cetera, and you get into, technology can make that process very similar, a lot more efficient, a lot more streamlined. But at the end of the day, a lot of, in our company, we basically say if a space makes it onto the market, our guys aren't doing their job. So that technology is not going to fix relationships and understanding of markets. And we are extremely heavy on the technology side and the analytics side, but predictive is just that, it's predictive, right? And you can find the best space in the world, but a local market understanding of things like major shifts in demographics, major traffic pattern changes, construction projects, brand new centers are being built a mile down the road that are going to change movement of consumers as they go. What's happening in the area from from something as simple as school districts, et cetera. All that can be factored in analysis, but boots on the ground will never go away, as well as understanding how to get through a transaction. I think the way you've been talking about, helping people or helping retailers leverage space in a unique way, that's something that you need the human touch to be able to do. And I just I think technology will enhance, but it will never replace. And I also think, as much as my son would disagree because I have to text him to tell him it's dinner time and things like that, but I do think inherently we are social beings to the point that we want interaction, and when we want help in a retail environment, a lot of times, you'll see a lot of people say, I don't want to deal with the associate, et cetera. I don't want somebody to bother me when I walk in. But at the same time, when you do want help, you want help, and you want somebody that's knowledgeable and understanding and will spend time educating you. So I think a lot of that shifts in what the expectations are of associates, or at McDonald's of a person taking the order, et cetera. and it just shifts a little bit but doesn't go away.
I can agree. I think from a small business perspective, I'm trying to get them to look at Square just to see how much stock they have left. So as long as those small tools can still help them, I think that with AI and things, that type of technology inside the store, they don't have empathy. So if I'm a customer and I need help on my size, especially, I was trying to figure this out for scanning women's bodies to let them know like what size really fits, right? If we were to do that, and then I was trying to figure out, well, would that system have some type of empathy? Because I don't want the woman to feel like she's bigger, you know, in her mind, even though the AI is telling her, yeah, you probably need the size 20 and not the size 16, right? And so I think in my industry, it's going to be a while till big technology starts to flip. I will say that I think Rent the Runway does a really good job of integrating technology and human interaction into their stores, when you can go in and you can look and slide and see what's in the store and stock, and then they'll bring it out to talk to you. But they have figured out how to make a old-fashioned type of boutique-ish experience with this new age technology that allows the consumer to feel a part of the online experience, but also feel like, oh, I'm in a really nice environment and the lady there knows what I need.
Okay. So all of you are in some ways very in front of retail and what's happening. What's one big prediction that you see for the future that you think is going to stick around? Ada or Stephen?
We're trying to make it to tomorrow.
A big prediction. We'll kind of set the bounds at 5 years. 5 years, I would say. I think from a brick and mortar, so everyone in the room probably understands that the biggest point for a sale is the friction that is created. Right? So Amazon Go, minimal friction. I mean, that's why they're working on that. And it's been shown that if you can reduce friction via the payment process, which is why e-commerce is so easy, because the friction is so frictionless, that's what will drive sales. And so I believe that implementation of Amazon Go will continue to, or a version of that, will continue to kind of enter the market in ways that we don't really know yet. Amazon Go mentioned that they're looking to integrate into, aside from Amazon Go stores, they want to integrate into office lobbies and into convenience stores. All of these, again, reduce the friction that increase sales for brick and mortar.
I would go with the fact that I don't think we'll be talking about e-commerce or digital and physical. I think that's easy to do right now, and it's still relatively new. But like if you go 5 years from now, I think you'll be talking about just the entire retail process or the entire sales process. The closest thing right now is omni-channel, I guess, but I think it's going to be more about that whole retail presence and how we look at that. And I think the two have been somewhat separated. I think it'll just become closer and closer together till there's not much of a distinction.
And I think on the community commerce aspect, that will continue to grow in figuring out how to use spaces that you can manipulate to bring in small businesses, like the shipping container yards. I feel like that will help with our going forward.
Okay. We've got a couple minutes left. So if you could just name, like rapid fire, your favorite brick and mortar place to shop.
I'm going to throw this out because, again, it's not one that you would expect. There's all the new trendy names and all the new concepts. I continue to say if you want to really learn how to from a retail perspective, it's Nordstrom. And the quick version, the quick summary of that is it's no longer Nordstrom as we know it. It's Nordstrom Local. It's Nordstrom Men's. It's Nordstrom Online. It's the technology in the dressing rooms. It's all the stuff. These are guys that have bucked every possible trend that's out there and are actually continuing to find ways to thrive in doing so. And I think that retailers can learn over and over again from what they're doing.
For me, it'll be the citizen supplies and the neighborhood goods. I kind of like what they're going with the indie brands and leading with that and allowing businesses take up 10 by 10 space or a small footprint in their stores. Yeah.
I think I like Banana Republic because my girlfriend, or excuse me, fiance. Geez, I'm glad she's not here. That's where she shops mostly for me. And I guess one of their subsidiaries, Old Navy, has now announced that they're significantly expanding their presence from a brick and mortar perspective. So clearly, what they're doing is working. So, Banana Republic.
I think that's it for the panel. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys.